Welcome back to this episode of View from the Top podcast, where we help growth-minded men who desire momentum in their business, their family, and their finances get through the valleys and up the mountain to their very own view from the top. Thanks for being back with us today. This episode is a very special episode, so we're not going to waste any time. Let's get Big A in the studio and get rolling. Big A, it's a big day for us.
Wally, it's a big day. Episode 100, it's here, it's on us. And so, I almost did something you did a few episodes back. You gave us some kind of woohoo or waha or something. I don't know what you did, but it was like, I think I'm going to do that, but it didn't sound the same coming from me. But man, congratulations. 100 episodes, View from the Top. This is pretty cool. You know, I've heard that only a vast majority of podcasts only make it to like episode 11 or something.
It's like 7 to 11. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah,
we've 10X that, right? So we've made it to 100. So I'm pretty excited. I came in the other day. This reminded me of this particular situation. I had a little financial windfall, and I went in to Robin. I normally don't even tell her about this kind of stuff, but I thought, well, this is kind of cool because we've talked about it in the past. And I walked in and I said, hey, and I told her what was going on, and she goes, man, how are we going to celebrate? And I said, I'm going to pay this bill, or I'm going to do this investment, or I'm going to whatever it was. And she goes, can we never do something fun? You wasn't even going to get this money, and you got the money. It's like, can we not go do something fun? So I said, no, I'm going to stick it over here. Is what I'm going to do with it. So I got convicted overnight. I started thinking about it. Next day, I said, Robin, come here. I said, listen, we're going to take this much of this and we're going to set it aside and we're going to do X with it. And she said, now you're talking. This is my kind of investment. And I said, all right. Which takes us into celebrating. Wally, we don't celebrate enough. I mean, we just don't. We talk about this in the mastermind a lot. You and I have talked about this at length. But to be honest with you, I haven't celebrated the majority of my business career. And some of the reasons behind that is I didn't really feel like I had a safe place to do it. I felt like, no, people don't want to hear that, and they're going to be jealous or envious, and you can't talk to family about it, and you can't talk to some of your friends about it. And I'm a real private individual anyway, so I didn't want to appear to be boastful. And so I've always used that as an excuse not to celebrate. Well, for me personally, there is no way that I would go to my extended family and tell them, hey, we did this, or we accomplished that, or we bought this, or made this, deal. But the thing that is so cool now, we've changed that for the past 11 years. We built a safe environment in Iron Sharpens Iron to celebrate wins. Yeah. Not only do we celebrate, it's encouraged. Like at the live event, we get up and I say, okay, we're going to do full cups. It's things that we share. We call full cups. And I said, who's got a big win? And guys start standing up from the floor saying, I've doubled my business this year. I've got a new product now that is in Home Depot, or we've bought a dozen houses, or we've financed this thing, or went and partnered. It's like the whole room is cheering. Like everybody's excited. And I thought, how cool is it that we can have an environment like that to celebrate? So I thought it'd be really cool today to kind of break this down a little bit, talk through it, and see how we can celebrate better.
Yeah, man, I'm with you. I'd love to break this down. I'm right there with you. I historically have not celebrated well.
We're fuddy-duds. That's what we are. We're old fuddy-duds.
Next thing, there's something else
right.
to accomplish.
Okay, that was good. Let's go to the next thing.
I know. But man, congratulations again on doing this podcast with you for 100 episodes, and
it's fun.
And I don't know if it was you or somebody else asked me the other day, like, what keeps you going? Like, why do you keep doing this? Like, it's a lot of work. I don't. People haven't done one. If they've done one before, they know what it takes. If you haven't done one before, you don't know what it takes. And
it is a lot of work. It's
a lot of work. An expense. There's an expense with it and all that. I say that not to like. It's not a bragging thing or anything. Yes, that's a reality.
Yeah,
and so somebody asked me like, why do you keep doing it? And you know what? I don't know what it is for you. I'd like to know what it is for you, but I'll tell you what it is for me. It's not every week, but enough. I'll just say enough. That usually in a sidebar conversation, someone will bring up something that they heard on the podcast that somehow helped them inform themselves to make a different decision. That doesn't mean that it was something I said or you said, or maybe it was one of our guests said, or maybe it was just a topic themselves that got them thinking about something differently for the first time, something they hadn't done. And I think that's what we're doing today. We're going to talk about how do we celebrate well, which isn't something we often talk about. So what is it for you? What keeps you going?
Yeah, in the podcast,
yeah.
I mean, what keeps me going here? I think it's much the same as you. Is like you'll be at dinner, or you'll be, with some of the guys in ISI, or I know you even got some neighbors that have come up to you.
I do. Yeah, it's been so cool.
Hey, Wally, I learned this about you, or I heard this, and it's really encouraging when guys will tell you, "Hey, I've listened to every episode." I'm like, "What?" Like, I haven't listened to every episode. And they're like, no,
well,
I've
listened to every.
All, so. Yeah. But it's like, it is so cool to see these guys learn who we are as individuals. Like, I feel like we, put it out there who we are, and it gives people a little better frame of reference, what we like to talk about, what we like to do. And so that makes it fun for people that know us. It's like, hey, I didn't know you and Robin did this, or I didn't know y'all been here. That's been fun. But I'm like you, to see the transformational experience, to see a young entrepreneur go, I didn't even know that was a thing, or I didn't even know that was a possibility, or you said something that I didn't even think was that big a deal, but what's ordinary to us is extraordinary to some. And it's the same for me with listening to other podcasts of people that I enjoy. It's just their normal reoccurrence, the way they do life and do business. And I learned something as a result of that. So, yeah, I think it's the teaching, the encouraging. By nature, I try to be an encourager, and I think this is a way that we can do that.
Yeah, it's good. So let's start off, man. What's kind of been your history? I mean, you explained a little bit of an example recently with Robin, but what's kind of been your history for you if you go back over time about related to just celebrating, wins in general? What's been your thought on?
Yeah, I've got a younger brother. He's just a few years younger. He's about 4 years younger. And he and I were talking about this the other day. A lot of my unwillingness or inability to share wins is the way I was raised. My dad was a very, very private person, and you don't share anything with anybody. That was his MO. Like, we don't talk about finances outside this house. We didn't barely talk about it in the house, much less outside the house. And if you got something new, you certainly didn't share it because you don't want to appear to be boastful. You don't want to brag around your family or friends. And so it was just really pushed down, celebrating anything like that. We would celebrate things as a family, primarily like grades, when I was a kid in school, if we did good on grades and things like that. But as far as anything super big financially, there wasn't a lot to celebrate. We were pretty poor when I was a child, but we were just taught that. And so for the first 20 years of my career, I kept everything close to the vest. I didn't share anything with anybody. And I'm embarrassed to admit this, but even with Robin, very, very seldom did I ever share anything related to the business. I didn't share anything. We didn't talk about finances. One reason, I was just tired at night and I didn't want to rehash it. But another thing is like, hey, that's my responsibility. And I'm like you, and we did have some wins early in our career. And Robin and I did do some things to celebrate some exits of some companies that we owned, but we didn't celebrate near enough, quite honestly. And I feel like I cheated my girls a little bit because, we would celebrate birthdays and Christmas. Sure. And outside of that, we didn't do a lot of celebrating. So it wasn't really until I got involved in the mastermind group, the Eagles, got around other guys, and they were talking about sharing with certain groups, certain people that you should be sharing, because one is it's an encouragement to them, people that really align with your core values, people that really have similar worldviews, people that were similar from a financial standpoint. You could celebrate around a smaller group of people. And it even allowed me to learn how to do that as an adult. Like, I was in my 40s at that time. And so through Iron Sharpens Iron, even being around you and Derek and Kurt and Matt and Brett and some of those guys, we've slowly all presented ourselves in a way that we're able to celebrate. Now it's the culture of who we are as an organization. And so I don't do a lot of sharing outside of our organization. Mm-hmm. I've got a few handful of friends that I'm really close with that I share, and they share with me. But publicly, I don't do even today a lot.
Yeah. We've got in ISI, we've got the community, which is kind of like the army of men, right? There's a whole bunch of guys in there. And then there's the ISI mastermind piece, which is more like, I love how Derek says it. Derek Champagne says it's more like a special forces, the mastermind piece, where you've got, the army of guys on the community side, where, large gatherings and roundtables every month and connect calls every month. And of course, everybody's there. But then in the mastermind, you got those weekly blocks of just, we're going to deep dive for an hour together. And then we go our separate ways and we come back next week. And so very special forces, which is awesome. One of the things that kind of the format that ever since I've been working on almost a decade in ISI Mastermind is that often we'll open our weekly calls like for 5 minutes of like, hey, who's got a win? Right? And not every week does everybody have a win, but it's interesting. We talk about wins, and even already we've kind of talked about maybe some things that are like big financial things, a big purchase or a windfall or selling a business and like you would kind of be expected to maybe at some level figure out how to celebrate those things, because you can't, like, how do you miss them, right? And we still struggle with that. But then we bring those in the weekly calls, we bring that right down to like, what was a win for the week? Yeah. And
relational, spiritual, personal,
all around the 5 pillars. And often it's not like, hey, I made a bunch of, 99.9% of the time, it's not, hey, I made a bunch of money this week. Yeah. It's like, hey, my son and I got baptized this week.
Yeah.
It's like, boom.
But it don't get any bigger than that though, right?
No, it's like, boom. We've got, I could just go,
I could
go on and on.
The guys talking about, like, because they don't do good sometimes with date nights, or they spend a night with their child out eating pizza and ice cream.
Or in a tent in the backyard.
These are big wins, right? Yeah. It's cool.
Yeah. Maybe it was something they paid off. Maybe, you know what I'm saying? Maybe it was something like that. It's just so many things. And it's fun just to be like, one thing I have learned though, when you're around the right group of people, when you're around the wrong group of people and you say something that's a win for you, often than not, they look, even though your win, they feel bad, right? If they're not the right people, they feel bad. So they actually project back on you that, oh, you're better than me or whatever the case. But they don't understand.
No, they don't.
And so what I have discovered, even in the ISI mastermind, my ISI mastermind group sometimes, is that, like, even for other guys that bring their wins, I have to prepare myself and be in the right mindset, because a lot of those exciting things happen all the time. And so I can get like, oh, I need to like celebrate that guy. Like, cause that is an important thing. So it almost becomes, the wins almost become a little more commonplace. So you actually have to be prepared on the opposite end of the spectrum sometimes. But it's still exciting to be able to do that and to have somebody else just say, hey,
Wally, I remember when we first started making this a culture. It's been probably 8 years ago now, when we really started leaning in to celebrate the wins. I remember how uncomfortable it was for everybody that was in all the groups. I led 7 or 8 groups at the time.
What a few.
And, I was a big catalyst of getting us started celebrating wins, because I had never done that, and I'd learned how, and I wanted other businessmen to do the same. And I'll never forget one of the meetings that we were in, and we were celebrating wins, and somebody shared a win, like, hey, I had a date night, and another guy said, yeah, I took my daughter out, or whatever. And the next guy came around, and I'm not going to call his name for privacy's sake, but he sold his business, and it was in the high teens, in the millions, and nobody said anything. And then the next guy goes, well, yeah, I did this. I said, whoa, wait a minute, wait a minute. And I said, did you hear what this guy just said? And they all like looked, and I said, we should be jumping out of our chairs. Like, do you realize how many guys in their 30s is going to sell a business for that many $1 million?
Yeah, what it took to get there, yeah.
And they said, yeah. So we talked through it for the next 20 minutes. We talked through it. And I said, y'all need to be cheering and clapping and high-fiving and calling this guy. Like, we're good. And it took months, if not years, to build that culture in ISI. And today it's expected. It's encouraged. People know it's coming. They feel totally comfortable with it. And I tell you, it's one of the most best traits our organization has today, that we encourage a safe place for you to share these wins. It's motivating.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, when you think about how encouraging it is and exciting when you're not like, man, I wish that was me. It's not like that. It's like, man, I can do that also. And we're going to celebrate this guy. Wally, what's one of the biggest wins you remember actually celebrating?
I'm going to do one relational and one financial, one professional. I got a couple.
Okay.
So I think the biggest relational win for me, and I can think of a few, reality is being 1 year and 4 months married, and I left my wife, and 4 months later she took me back. That was a big win. That was a big win. A long time ago, but I still remember, and I'm grateful that she was forgiving and in that way. Another relational one was just a couple years ago. My dad left my mom and I when I was 5, and they both got remarried and had lives. And I've lived, with had good relationships with both of them for a long time. And there's always just a little uneasiness with my dad, my biological dad, just because of what he had done, and never addressed it. And just about 5 years ago now, went out to lunch with him. They live back in New York State. And went out to lunch with them, and just out of the blue, out of his own accord, he apologized, and for what had happened, 46 years ago, and took responsibility for it. That was a big moment. That was a big win, and so I celebrate that. I think professionally, one of the biggest wins professionally was in building the business that I sold in 19. Being able to develop a team that ran the business where I wasn't needed. Not saying that wasn't hard at times, but that was a big win professionally, to be able to structure a business where, you didn't need to be there every day. And reality is, when I sold and left, for multiple reasons, most of them are doing great. Now, it's a struggle. Is it different? Sure. But they're doing great and getting good opportunities. And so that's a big professional win. Financial win, obviously selling the business, right? Like, Sonia did such a good job. I'll tell you. So, I think the day we sold was on a Thursday. I can't remember. I think it was maybe it was a Monday or Thursday. I can't remember. But as soon as the papers were signed, I had a little bit of meeting to do to finish up with, I was going to take the rest of the day off because that was 6 months of due diligence, living hell. So we got there. We got to the paper signing, and I actually did it in my RV, in an RV park. How ironic, since it was an RV related business. But so signed the paperwork digitally, all done. Looked at my bank account, boom, transfers there. There's the money. All right, I'm taking the rest of the afternoon off. And all afternoon, Sonia had planned stuff. First thing she did, I'm going to cry. Like, first thing she did was she called all the kids. She had them ready. And everybody got on a Zoom. All the daughters and their son-in-laws and my son-in-laws, their husbands, got on a Zoom call and just praised God and prayed. Sonia prayed and just thanked the Lord for opportunity and what this would mean for generations to come. And that was a big win. And then rest of the day, she had stuff planned out, dinners and all kinds of stuff. She did all that.
Shopping.
She did it. No. Okay, I'll say this. I'll say this about my bride. I really appreciated the fact that she did, on a previous podcast, I mentioned some selfish things that I had thought during that time period. I didn't land there, but the enemy was planting those seeds of thought in my mind. It didn't land there by any means. I'm very grateful for Sonia she did such an amazing job in the sale process that she really encouraged me to go do some things to celebrate well. And some of them were together, but there was a couple things that were just for me. I bought a really nice side-by-side Ranger and souped it all up. And that was really fun. Lived out in the country at that time. And we bought a convertible for the two of us to enjoy. And we did a donor advised fund and put a bunch of money into it to be able to minister with that over time. And those are some big
lot
wins
to celebrate.
Yeah, it was good. It was fun. Yeah, it was good. And then at Christmas time with the kids, I'd gotten counsel from guys like, hey, how should we celebrate as a family? This was in November that we sold. So Christmas time's coming up and we always get together for a week at Christmas time. Everybody comes home. And I had all these great ideas from everybody. Hey, go to your family. Like you guys could maybe go to Jamaica and celebrate or something for Christmas. So we got with the kids and said, what do you guys want to do? Like, here's some ideas. They're like, we still just want to come home and let's just create some really cool experiences around food. That's how they wanted to celebrate. And we had a great time. We did all week long. So they're there for 5 nights. We did a different national theme night every week. And we bought top of the line food and we all made it, worked together to make it and celebrated that way. It was fun. It was a good time. How about you?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that a little bit. I wasn't really even prepared to ask the question, much less answer the question. But I thought about 2 things that really immediately came to my mind. There's 2 that I'll mention. Quite honestly, neither one of them are financial for us individually. But when I was 19, I went out on my own and went in business. And for those that have read my book and followed me for any length of time, you know that I was in the pawn shop business. And that business historically in Nashville, the folks that owned that were all Jewish. There were 17 families in Nashville. Wow. I was the only Christian in that business at the time. Went out on my own.
How do you justify that? A Christian? That's a different topic. A Christian owning a pawn shop. But anyway, topic for another day. Keep going.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll be interested in breaking that one down. But so when I was 13, I started working for a pawn shop. Yeah. And when I was 19, I left there and went out on my own, opened my own. Well, that group of people ostracized me. They didn't have anything to do with me. And they said, you're going to ruin this business for the rest of us and et cetera, et cetera. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And I befriended every one of them. I go around and talk to them. I would call them and they were like, we don't want anything to do with you. I mean, literally that way, they literally ostracized me because all these families grew up together. They'd been in that business for 30, 40 years here in Nashville. And here this, young whippersnapper, this Christian's going to get in the pawn business. So for 6 years, I befriended them, talked to them. And when I was 25 years old, they made me president of their association.
Wow.
And it was a really, really cool win for us. It was really something that proved to me that determination, if you really lean in, you're friendly, you can change the mindsets of people that are against you. The second huge win that we celebrated is private, and I'm not going to go into the details, but we did a large financial contribution to a member of our family that changed the trajectory of their life, unbeknownst to them at the time. And cool. It made such an impact. They were able to do some things that they thought they probably never would have been able to do. And yeah, we celebrated that. That was fun. Yeah, that was fun. Those are 2 things. I do remember celebrating my 40th birthday. That was a big deal. And my 60th birthday. You were at my 60th.
I was there for that one.
That was fun. So yeah, those 2 things. Those were fun. I want to encourage the listeners today to think about how you can be a blessing to others in your celebration. Mm-hmm. Not always turn it to where it's on yourself and you're only going to celebrate things that are to your benefit or to your gain. Think about ways that you can pour into others. You can help others. You can help them accomplish their goals, their dreams, the things that you can do. I promise you, this is coming from experience. It will make a longer lasting impression on your life. You'll celebrate that longer because you see the difference it made in the other family members or colleagues or employees, whoever. Some of the funnest times we've ever had is being able to do things for other people. Mm-hmm. And I know some of the listeners today, you can't necessarily do it in a big financial way, but you can spend time. There's things that you can do. It's not always just financial, that you can invest so that you can celebrate. And I just promise you, you as a family will celebrate those times longer and more and remember them more than doing something for yourself. But
I'm going to add to that real quick. I'll give him credit, Paul Edwards. I know he didn't come up with it, but he's the one that told me about it, so I'll give him credit. But he has like a few questions that he asks, kind of like really anybody. It could be somebody you know and or it could be somebody you just met. But one of those questions is, what's working well for you? And it's not asking anybody like, hey, what's a big win? Which feels really awkward. What's working well? You could, and relate, easy relate, you can easily celebrate with that person. That question could be, some version of that question could be a family member. It can be somebody, a colleague, an employee, a team member. It can be a neighbor, right? Some version of that in the right place. Like, what a great opportunity. Something so simple to be like, hey, what's working well for you? They tell you and you're like, great job. That's exciting. Yeah. That's awesome. Something so simple.
It's always those simple things that are the most meaningful, though, when you really pour yourself into other people's lives and you really ask the questions.
What is that they say about, you've said this before, it's not what you say, it's how.
Well, people only remember you for how you make them feel.
No, it's not what you say, it's how they feel. Yeah.
And so I started thinking along the way, because I had a lot of career opportunities and lived a few years in life, and you have as well. What are some of the things that we could do? Like, people listen to this today, like, I don't even know what to do to celebrate. Like, we've even had guys in ISI that are very successful businessmen. Yeah. They're like, I don't even know what to do. Well, I started thinking through that, and I thought, well, man, why don't you just have a big party? First and foremost, Robin and I love to do that. We love to have people over to our house, and, we do various things. We love to play cornhole or ping pong or shoot guns or grill out or get around the fire. We've got a big patio, and we, build a fire out there and just hang out and have good fellowship and good food, and be prepared for them to stay. People won't leave when you're doing that stuff, right? And so start early, but I like to go to bed early, but just
when's the last time you've done one of those? I haven't been invited.
Last Friday night.
You haven't celebrated lately with a big party. You need to do one.
Yeah. You know what's funny? What's funny is that there is about 6 or 8 couples in our small group, and they're always doing things at each other's houses and things like that. You get in that rut and do things with the same people. You know what I'm saying?
Giving you a hard time, man.
I know you are. I know, but you actually were at my house just a few weeks ago for a party. I
was. We were celebrating a birthday. That was nice.
Yeah, we were. It was fun. It was fun. What about you, Wally? What are a couple of ways that when you host these parties, it just fosters that camaraderie. Yeah. It's just a sense of accomplishment that you're sharing with other people to invite them into your space.
Yeah, it's good. I love the idea of, you think about those people around you, whether they're children, your team members, your employees. I think if we're paying attention to what their wins are, then we have great opportunity to be able to celebrate them. And that doesn't have to be extravagant. It can be something simple, a handwritten note privately. Even you can celebrate people privately. It doesn't have to be a big public outward thing. You can celebrate someone privately with a handwritten note. You can celebrate them by calling them out in a meeting, right? That you're having a stand-up. Maybe you have a weekly stand-up meeting or a weekly team meeting or a rally, whatever you have, and be like, hey, whether it's, maybe you celebrate how long that they've worked there, something simple, right? Or I love to do the core value celebrations. It's easier to do with a bigger team than a smaller team because there's more people paying attention. Is that basically people can, on your team, they can submit people when they see them executing on a core value. And then you can honor those like in a monthly team rally or something like that, annual team meeting or something. So those are fun, super inexpensive, easy ways to celebrate wins with others, especially those in your circle of influence.
What's pretty cool too is the people that have helped you accomplish the success in your business. Don't ever forget them because without them, you couldn't have accomplished that. If you want to get a little more extravagant, there's cash that you can give. It's like, hey, everybody loves cash. You're never going to go wrong.
No one's going to turn that down.
And the other things that I've enjoyed doing is trips. People that have really stood by me and walked through me hand in hand, accomplishing some success in business. We handsomely treat them financially, but at the same time, find out places that they go. I've bought a number of cruises for people to go on that they normally wouldn't do for themselves. But before I forget it, you just mentioned something that I thought of while you said it was the handwritten cards. Don't underestimate the value of that. Now, I can't remember year after year, but this past year, I can tell you the handwritten cards that I've received. Now, I can't necessarily every text or every Facebook message or every email, but I can tell you each and every card that I've received because they took the time, right? It was personable. They sat down and did that. But yeah, back to our list a little bit. I just think it shows appreciation for hard work and dedication. And I think it enhances the loyalty and the satisfaction of your employees that you're willing to share. We never should be greedy. We never should be in it just for ourselves. And so sharing with others, I've kind of made that a regular practice through the course of my business career. And so I just think it's important to remember those that are helping you. 2 or 3 more before we wrap up today. 2 or 3 more.
I think I mentioned earlier the idea of a donor advised fund. That's more of doesn't have to be large. You don't have to start with a large amount of money in that. For those of you who don't know what donor advised funds are, you can typically do them through most of the large financial investment companies. But the one I like is National Christian Foundation. Just search National Christian Foundation. What they allow you to do is basically it's under their foundation, but they're Christian focused. So they only allow funds to be distributed through that foundation out to nonprofit Christian type organizations. And what you do is you create like a sub fund under their foundation. And because it's donor advised, so meaning that I'm the donor, so I get to advise where it goes. So, whether you put $100 in or you put 500,000 in, that sits there, and you're able to gift that out right through their app to over time or right away. Like you have time. Like you can put a whole bunch. You can put some in over time and then do something big or put something in. I know people they use it to just give to their churches. Honestly, just that's how they just use that as a vehicle to do that. And so when we sold our business, we did a donor advised fund that we still have today, and we've been able to do some cool projects with that over time. And that's just a fun way to be able to celebrate, right? Giving back. It is
celebrating. Yeah. It's constantly reminding you as well, right? It's like God really blessed you with the ability to be able to do this, and it's a continual celebration. And I know that years ago I sold a business, and as a result of wanting to celebrate that, quite honestly, there wasn't anything I needed personally at the time, but I wanted to celebrate. And I want to end kind of today with sharing this story. Yeah. Is that I created the Aaron Walker Scholarship Award. And a lot of people hearing that initially like, yeah, Big A, you did well and you're able to. Listen, it was $1,000. It was just for an 8th grade student at Neely's Bend Junior High School that was trying the hardest. That's it. It wasn't academic. It wasn't, sports related. It was the kid that was trying the hardest. And the teachers voted on it, and then they surprised that person at an awards banquet every year. I went and gave a speech, told my story. I love Neely's Bend Junior High School. That's where I went to junior high. I loved that school. Those teachers changed my life. And as a result of that, I just gave this $1,000 scholarship to go towards their education. Well, it gave those kids a sense of hope that they had an opportunity, because we lived in kind of an impoverished area and they didn't really have any sense of hope. We tracked those for 8 years.
Wow.
And some of them went on to be nurses. Some went into the military and made careers out of the military. And it was cool to watch those people now have a sense of hope, because they had a little something as seed money to give them kind of a head start. Otherwise, they weren't going to have that opportunity.
That's so
it was
cool.
a way that we celebrated. So just think about you today. How is it you can celebrate? First and foremost, celebrate for you and your family. Celebrate for those that help you align on the journey. Celebrate in a way that will be a continual reminder for you going forward. We need to encourage this level of celebration around trusted advisors, people that you can trust, not to be flamboyant, not to be boastful, not to be arrogant, but in a way that's encouraging to other people. So, Wally, thank you for these 100 episodes. Thank you for all the time that you've invested to help make this successful. Hopefully today, those have enjoyed this. And I just want to encourage you as you leave today, figure out a way that you too can celebrate so that you too can have a view from the top.
Hey, thanks again for listening in to this 100th episode of View from the Top. We do not take for granted that you listen to this podcast. I'm very grateful. You can reach out to us if you have questions or comments or concerns. Reach out to us at that's POD, at viewfromthetop.com. We'd also love to have you come participate. We talked about having that small group of people around you that you trust, that you can celebrate with. And we do that inside of ISI, both in the community and in the mastermind. So I'd encourage you to start with the community. You can do that just by going to viewfromthetop.com/community. You can check that out there. And if you use the code VPOD? I think it's VPOD, VPOD. Yeah, that's it. VPOD. They'll give you like 30% off just as being our listener here on this podcast. So, man, thank you so much for listening again. And we want to hear from you so we can help you celebrate. And we will see you next week.